You're not manifesting slowly because the universe is ignoring you. You're manifesting slowly because your internal operating system is outdated. Your beliefs, emotions, habits are still running old patterns that don't support the new reality that you want. Until you update your internal operating system through your identity and your mindset, you'll keep attracting results that match the old version of you. Manifestation speeds up when your inner world fully aligns with your desires. And so when we think about manifestation as internal engineering, in terms of looking at our internal operating system and how it's operating, how it's running, and we look at it from that perspective in terms of being able to figure out and find out how the system is operating so that we can speed up those manifestations and not have it be some random thing that happens in reality where we are controlling it, we are creating it, and manifestations are coming to us faster than ever before. Okay, let's go over and let's break down the OS method on the board here. So the OS method, this is the method that essentially is going to speed everything up, okay? So it starts with the identity layer. So first is this identity layer, and then we have the emotional layer. And think about the identity layer as essentially who you see yourself as, right? And we're going to go into each of these individually, but I want to lay these out here first. So the identity layer, then there's the emotional layer, then there's the perception layer, right? How we're seeing the world, how we're interpreting. And then finally, we have the behavior layer. So 4 layers here. Let's go over each one of these individually. And what exactly this OS method is a step-by-step system and approach to upgrading your internal operating system that essentially runs your entire life. And think about your identity, your emotions, your perceptions, and your behaviors as all different layers of this particular system. Each layer influences the next, and together they create the reality that you experience. And when you upgrade your internal operating system, which is your OS, you're not just wishing for change. You're changing the core parts inside of you that shape the outer world. This is why manifestation accelerates exponentially and dramatically, because your inner world, which is your thoughts, your beliefs, your views, your perspectives, right? How you see your world, finally matches your outer world, which is your experiences, your outcomes, right? All of that. When both of those are in alignment, that's what speeds up the entire manifestation process altogether. And so your manifestations really all come down to your identity alignment, right? So you think about the identity aspect. Your identity is how you see the world, right? How you've chosen to be seen through your experience and through the world, and the character that you're essentially playing in your video game or in your movie, whatever that may be, right? How you've chosen to show up in the world. And then with the emotions, right? This is how you are actually experiencing the world through the feeling, through the sensing, right? How you have interpreted certain events, whether they are good, whether they're bad. That is your decision that you have made through your own perception, right? Somebody can experience a happy experience and a negative experience, but it can be the same exact experience for 2 different people, and both of those people are going to have one positive and one negative experience, right? Think about 2 different people taking a test, and one person bombs it and the other person also bombs it, but one person sees it as them being a failure and the other person sees it as a learning experience to get better, and they study even more and they try to understand where they went wrong, like what questions did they miss, and really dig into that deeper in terms of really trying to understand and reflect upon what happened, what caused that experience. Whereas the other person is just simply looking at it as them being a failure, that nothing ever good happens to them, and that they're not really good at, that particular subject or whatever that may be, right? So one sees opportunity, the other sees a problem. And that's really the biggest distinction here. Your perception controls the emotions that you experience. And then with your emotions, right? On the same thing, they're going to create the behaviors, right? How you are experiencing a certain event, if you are feeling sad, or if you're feeling happy, if you're feeling angry, right? Anxious, whatever that may be, that's going to have you take a certain behavior or not take any behavior at all, right? Any type of action at all. So that's really important in terms of understanding that you are coming through with your identity in terms of who you are, who you're playing in the movie or the video game. Then You have your emotions that are coming into play based off of your perception, okay, how you're seeing your experiences, your circumstances. And then that's all leading to your behavior, right? What actions are you going to take, if any at all? And each layer builds upon the previous one. If there's misalignments in identity, it causes distortion in your perception, which leads to disruptive emotions, right? Feeling all different types of emotions at all given times. And then comes the inconsistent behaviors and the unwanted and unexpected results, right? The outcomes that are coming in based off of all of that. This internal OS method really teaches you to identify and upgrade each one of these layers so that they're all working in harmony. By working on this internal operating system as a whole, rather than just focusing on like external goals or wishful thinking, you create a powerful foundation for fast and long-lasting manifestations. Okay, so let's talk about why most people manifest slowly, okay? So let's get this on the board here. Let's break this down in terms of why people are naturally, unfortunately, manifesting super slow, slower than they would like, and then what we can do about it, okay? So why most people, okay? Most people manifest slowly. And it's for two reasons. One, we're going to have a box here, two different boxes here. Number one is going to be the desired reality, okay? Your desired reality of what you want, right? Because the reason why you're manifesting slowly here is because you have internal conflict between your operating systems, okay? This is your operating system that you want to be running, right? This is your desired reality. And the other one here, this is your current OS. So this is your current operating system, and your desired reality. This is where you have clear vision for what you want. So you know exactly what you want to accomplish. You have an idea in terms of like, I want to go this direction and I want to do A, B, and C, and I want to accomplish X, Y, Z, and I want to get to a certain level, right? I want to accomplish whatever objective or vision that you have in your mind in terms of what that looks like for you, right? And then there's success, right? Success is literally something that, in terms of what you believe that to be for you, right? Success has different definitions for each person, right? Maybe it has to do with you achieving your goals, you living a fulfilled life, right? Whatever that success definition that you have for yourself may be, this is where you are in your desired reality, where your success is being achieved, okay? And then we have peace. This is where you have peace, calm, tranquility. You are able to do things and have experiences and not let those experiences dictate how you feel or how your life is going to be or how your experience is, right? You are tranquil, and perhaps you even practice meditation to understand that quieting the mind is really, really important. And then you have abundance. Now, abundance doesn't necessarily mean you have a lot of money. It could be abundance in resources, in people, in friends, right? In acquaintances, in different types of resources that don't necessarily equate to having money, right? Because you can be living, let's say, in the forest or on farmland and not have a whole lot of money, but have a lot of resources, right, at your disposal to be able to live a good and happy, content life. So it's not necessarily money here in terms of the resources. And then love, right? This is in terms of relationships. And this is all about personal relationships here, but really centered around having a significant other, right? If you're a man and you're trying to get a woman, right, a partner, you know, how are you seeing that experience? Do you see yourself as worthy of having a significant other that fits the mold of what you're looking for, right? And same thing vice versa for the woman looking for a man who fits what she's looking for, right? And she deems herself worthy of attracting a man that fits, you know, what she believes she deserves, right? That's that love aspect. And I would say even more important here is your self-love, right? Love for yourself in terms of understanding all your deficiencies, you know, you yourself as a whole, like loving you first, right? Because very first and most important relationship through all of this is a relationship with yourself, right? So self-love, and then love of a significant other as well. And then we have opportunity, okay? This is in terms of how you are seeing the world, whether it's nothing is ever happening that is good for you, or that you see the world as it having pure opportunity in every single situation or circumstance or whatever that may be, right? Always looking at reframing whatever problem you have quote unquote decided to designate to be a problem, right? And see it as a problem. Whatever you look at and have experiences with, instead of looking at those as challenges, as problems, as negative, looking at everything from an opportunistic, right, lens that is going to give you power, right? It's going to be empowering for you to want to take action and execute. And so this is your desired reality, right? This is what success, that quote unquote, we can say looks like for most people who want to have their desired reality actually manifested, right? But then we want to look at the current OS. How does this look like? With the current OS, we have the fear, okay? Fear-based perspective in terms of us seeing everything from a negative lens of what if this happens and it doesn't work out, or what if XYZ happens, right? Kind of that anxious, negative, really looking at things as limitations, as problems, right? That perspective is what really is going to get you in trouble, and where most people are, right? Unfortunately, unconsciously, the system that they're running is operating from fear, right? They're seeing problems, they're seeing challenges, they're seeing things as roadblocks for them to not be able to get to that next level or that next destination. So what happens is they end up not even making a move and stopping dead in their tracks before even making a move in the first place. And then we have the emotional instability, okay? So emotional. Now, this is where you are getting riled up for certain situations. Your mood swings are all over the place. And one day you're feeling really good. The next day you're feeling defeated. Now, keep in mind, in terms of the one day feeling defeated. Now, it's okay to feel off on a day, right? Not every day you're going to feel 100%. Some days you're going to feel 50, 60%, 70%. But I think the language here is what's equally as important here to understand, is that the language that you are using to describe those days that you're off, instead of saying that you are defeated and looking at it from a negative light, negative lens, look at it as, hey, I had an off day, right? We all have off days. Not every single day is just rainbow and sunshine, right? It's always going to be where, you know, you're going to have days that are just you're 100%, you're going, right? And then the next day, or maybe a week or two down the road, you have a day where you're just like out of it. Keep in mind that the emotions and just experiences, a lot of it has to do with natural rhythms, right? You're not supposed to feel good every single day, right? It's not normal. You're supposed to go up and down, right? But you want to be right in that middle baseline. Think about a straight line, and you think about waves, right? Especially when you think about, like, let's say somebody who's in the hospital and they got those machines connected, and I forgot what it's called, but it's like that give you the pulse, right? The pulse signal. There's a straight line, and then there's the pulse that goes up and down. That's a natural rhythm. Things are supposed to be great and to our satisfaction, but not all the time. Things are going to happen, right? People are going to do things that are going to be unfortunate, and there's going to be unfortunate situations, but it's on us to look at them as opportunities versus getting emotionally riled up here. And then we have the old identity loops. Old identity. So this is where you are rerunning old identity loops that are essentially limiting, that you've been telling yourself in the past, right? The limitations about what you're not able to do, what you're good at, and you know why you can only do X, Y, and Z, and why you can't do A, B, C, right? Limitations that are self-imposed through the narratives, the stories that we've told ourselves based off of our upbringing, right? And our old version of ourselves, right? That's trying to protect us. And then we have behavioral dissonance. This is where our behaviors are not aligned with what we're actually trying to accomplish, right? Our actions are not aligned with their goals. When you're saying that you want to accomplish certain goals, you want to make a certain amount of money each month, you want to do ABC, whatever it may be, right? But you are not acting in accordance to that and not taking actions, even micro actions, to make that into a reality for you, right? You're procrastinating, you're self-sabotaging yourself because the old story is running and you're not letting yourself, right, take the proper action to get you to that wanted result and outcome. And then the last one here is lack of self-perception. This is in terms of how you are seeing yourself. You have a low self-concept and that you don't deserve certain things. You don't deserve self-love. You don't deserve love from other people. You're not deserving of getting certain things in your life for one reason or another that you've decided to tell yourself that that's a reason why, right? So the self-concept here is very similar to the identity. And a lot of times this happens here because you haven't really accomplished or done a whole lot. But what you can do here is really just think back to all of your childhood or like your whole entire life as a whole and find different wins that you can point to, right? Maybe you were part of a sports team growing up and maybe you led them in points, or maybe you helped somebody with their homework, or any type of good positive deed that shows yourself as capable, as deserving of you receiving these, types of things, right? So use those things in your life as, W's, as wins that you can use to improve and upgrade your self-concept, your self-worth. And so through all of this, I want you to think about that you're trying to install a new reality on a system that's built for the old one, right? So this is your current operating system, and you're trying to install a new system, a new operating system to get to your desired reality. So that's how I want you to think about this. Your subconscious and your habitual patterns influence how slow or how fast your manifestation occurs. And without upgrading your system, which is your mindset, your beliefs, your behaviors, these new desires are going to clash with your old operating system, right? Your current operating system that you have now. This is why your manifestations feel like with resistance, okay? In terms of resisting your new self, right? The desired reality that you want. And why there's confusion. Confusion in terms of what's going on here. Like, why can't I manifest, right? It's very confusing to you when you're just trying to manifest something and get a desired result, but you are always stuck running things through your current operating system, and you're asking yourself, well, what is going on here? Why can't I manifest? And it's really about this right here that you're going through, right? And this is what it feels like for most people, okay? Let's put this here, most people. And then the inconsistency here, right? The inconsistency in terms of not actually doing what you're saying that you're going to do, right? You're doing it for a little bit, but then something comes up, and then for whatever reason you miss your macro action that you told yourself and decided that you were going to take, but now you don't take it because you have the current OS that is operating, and then it's not allowing you to take those specific actions. And then there's the self-sabotage, which is the unconscious actions, right, that you're doing that are limiting you to really get any type of desired result that you're looking for. And then there's the emotional, okay, conflicts. In terms of your emotions are sporadic, they're all over the place. There's too many conflicting feelings that you're having. You're feeling sad, you're feeling mad, you're feeling angry, and that creates a lot of overwhelm and drains your energy. And then you have a feeling of nothing is working. This is where you're going through the loop and you're seeing things and you're seeing the reoccurring patterns happening, but you feel like you can't do anything about it. Like, man, why is this happening to me, right? This whole reoccurring process in terms of you operating from your current OS while you simultaneously want your desired reality. You are going through all of this and you're telling yourself that nothing's working because it's one whole main loop that is continually running, and it's all unconscious. And it all comes down to you not being integrated deeply and fully into your desired reality, right? Into your new operating system that is going to get you that desired reality. Okay, so let's talk about the reality creation loop. So let me go ahead and erase this here. So the reality creation loop here is very, very powerful. Okay, let's go over this individually here and we're gonna break this down. Okay, so the reality creation loop, okay, creation loop. Okay, so first it all starts with your identity. Then it goes into your interpretation. Then we have our emotion, which then drives our behavior, which then creates our reality. And then the identity becomes reinforced. Your identity is how you see yourself, your beliefs, your values, your self-image. And then your interpretation is the way that you perceive events, experiences based off your identity. And then your emotions are the interpretations that are based off of how you are deciding to see the world. And they're generated by how you're interpreting different events that are happening in your life, right? Those are going to cause the emotions, right? You're interpreting something as good or bad, right? Whatever type of meaning that you have attached to that event. And then that is creating an emotion, whether it be an emotion of happiness, sadness, discontent, anxiety, whatever that may be. And then your emotions are directly affecting your behavior, right? The behavior in terms of the actions that you're taking based off of how you're feeling, right, with these emotions. And then your behavior is then giving you your reality of how you are experiencing the physical world, right? In terms of the outer external world. And then your identity is reinforced as your reality confirms and strengthens your original identity, which is then completing this whole entire loop. And this is why your manifestations become slow, okay? So manifestation becomes slow when your interpretation contradicts your desires. You want abundance, but you interpret a specific event in terms of you being late on a payment or you missing a payment as having a financial setback, right? Instead of looking at it as, hey, what can I do to make sure that I don't have another late payment or that I am on top of my finances, right? Instead of looking at it as you being a financial or complete failure, right, in terms of financially. And when your emotional state can't hold the future, okay? So state plus future. Okay, think about this in the sense of you wanting to have a desired reality, a future version of yourself, and your current emotional state right now just can't even fathom that and cannot hold that, right? Like, whoa, that's a whole different person there. The person that doesn't worry about these little types of little challenges that are happening here, these little events and circumstances that the old version of me would look at as huge, massive problems. That future version of me looks at them as like little tiny minor inconveniences that they'll all get figured out no matter what, right? Because in this sense, think about it this way. It's really about how you are looking at something, how something is looking back at you, right? It's the reflection aspect. If you believe that something is a big, massive problem, well, guess what? It's going to be, and it's going to turn out to be a big, massive problem for you, whether that be internally or physically in terms of the external world. You are going to draw from your energy, right? In your frequency, you're going to draw that to be a bigger problem than it actually really is, versus you looking at it from above the problem and looking at it as something very small, right? Think about it as you being on like a satellite up in space, right? And you're looking down on Earth and you're looking at, let's say, a small little piece of land. That's how small you want to look at the problem and all problems, because the problems are as proportional to the size that you believe they are. And then the behavior does not match your identity. So, does not match identity, right? You want to see yourself as somebody who works out, who's in shape, who's all about fitness, and you want to lose some weight, whatever that may be, but then you miss out on going to the gym, right? Maybe you have designated times throughout the week where you want to go to the gym in the evenings after work or whatever that may be, but then you start missing those days. You start getting lazy, you start getting complacent, and your actions are not aligning with the identity that you want to achieve, right? And then old identity patterns are overriding your new intentions. This goes back into the behavior aspect, right? Where you are doing new habits, right? You're doing new things, taking micro actions so that you can start to step into your new identity, the new version of yourself. But a lot of those self-limiting beliefs, those old narratives, those old stories are coming back into your mind, and they're holding you back because they're trying to protect you. They're trying to protect the current version of you from stepping outside of danger or something that they seem or deem to be a problem or negative, right? So that's really how this all breaks down. And so this is why manifestation becomes super slow, because your interpretations are contradicting your desires, and your emotional state can't hold the future, right? And then your behavior is not matching the identity, and then your old identity patterns are taking over versus your new outcome, right? And your new intent that you're setting in terms of who you want to be and who you want to become, so that you can manifest exactly what you want. So to manifest effectively, change your identity first, and then change how you interpret experiences and regulate emotions, and make sure to align your behaviors with your new identity. This creates a new reality, which then reinforces your new identity, which then speeds up your manifestations. Okay, so now let's go over the OS method, the 4 stages to manifest faster. So let's go over each one of these. Let me delete this here. Okay, so here's the OS method. The 4 steps to manifest faster. Okay, so let's break this down. I'm gonna have 4 corners here, so let's break this down like this. Okay, stage 1 is the reveal. This is where you're bringing the OS to the surface. This is where you're bringing awareness to the situation, to the circumstance, to the whole entire picture here. This is where you're going to see the identity conflicts, okay? Conflicts, blockages, okay? In terms of mental blockages, the patterns that are happening in your life, in terms of the emotional patterns that where something happens and you're immediately reacting to it and you're quote unquote, let's say you're freaking out, you're getting anxious, all of that. Self-image limitations, the internal narratives, essentially where you're bringing everything to the light, right? To the awareness, to the surface, where you can see everything for what it is, right? Like what's going on here? What's the story that I've been telling myself that's been keeping me limited and keeping me down low, right? Versus what I actually want to accomplish and who I want to be. And then stage 2, this is the recode. This is where you shift and you upgrade your identity and your internal story. Think about this as going from 2.0 to 3.0, okay? Upgraded version of yourself, right? Think about a software that gets new features, new updates, right? Think about your phone. Maybe you have an iPhone and every so often they have a new upgrade, right? Like an iOS upgrade. That's how you want to look at this. You want to look at this as you upgrading your identity to a new type that has new features, new functionalities, which allows you to run better, right? To run the operating system more efficient and more productive. Okay, and then stage 3, this is where we rewire, okay? This is where you regulate your emotional patterns. This is where you have become aware of what's going on in terms of the operating system that you're running, and then you're recoding yourself from a 2.0 to the 3.0. And in here, it's about self-concept, okay? Self-concept, internal narratives, right? So then you have your decision-making habits, your automatic reactions. So think about situations where you naturally and organically already just react to certain circumstances, to certain challenges that are happening, certain events where you're just like freaking out over something, versus being able to experience an emotion. Let's say something bad happens to you, quote unquote, right? It's about you being able to acknowledge that you're feeling a certain way. Let's say you feel frustrated. It's okay to feel that, but acknowledging it and not letting it affect your entire day or your overall experience, right? You are experiencing some sort of frustration. Okay, we get it. But then let's look at the whole situation as a whole, right? From the big picture aspect, and let's zoom out and look at it for what it truly is, right? Remember, we want to zoom in to look at like what exactly is going on so we can reveal the patterns, and then we want to zoom out when we want to look at the big picture of it all and really look to minimize and reduce the size of the problems that we're actually experiencing, right? Or the events, so that they're not big, huge problems. They're small little minor inconveniences that we're going to get through no matter what. And then stage 4, this is where we want to realign, okay? Realign. This is what happens when we fully operate from our mindset, emotions, and decisions of our future self. And so here we're operating from future self, okay? We're taking their perspectives, their views, their identity into play here and looking at what would our future self do here in this situation, right? We're taking them into account. And then our emotions, okay? Standards, decisions, okay? Are all coming from future self, right? They are fully involved here. And everything that we're doing now is from that future version of ourselves. This is where manifestation speeds up dramatically because your internal state fully matches your desired reality. You see, the OS method makes manifestation faster because it removes the internal resistance and emotional conflicts that usually slow us down. It ends the self-sabotage that is caused by the old identity patterns and clarifies how we see our goals. By creating behaviors that are truly aligned with what we want and stabilizing our nervous system, it builds steady and consistent momentum. In simple terms, manifestation speeds up when your internal operating system, in terms of the way that you think, you feel, you act, is fully in sync with your vision so that they're no longer fighting each other and working together cohesively. Okay, so now let's go over a practical routine for manifesting faster. Break this down here. Okay, so let's call this the daily OS loop, okay? So in the morning, this is identity activation. And so this is where you're setting your day to consciously step into an identity that you're desired, right? And this can start with journaling, with meditating, with just sitting quietly with yourself and looking through everything in your mind and looking at what are all the goals, what are all the different action items that you need to take to get to your goals, to accomplish them, right? To see the reality that you want to see. Perhaps you go through affirmations that you've written for yourself, or you listen to like an audio recording of meditations. I like to listen through audio recordings of myself over binaural beats where I'm recording myself with different affirmations, different empowering statements. And so I'll listen to those, right, in the morning. And they're very, very powerful for starting the day. And they get you in that mood, right, in that state. And then midday is your OS check-in, okay? OS check-in. So this is where you're checking in terms of getting a pulse check of what's going on. This is where you want to pause and think about, how has the day been going? How have I been reacting? How have I been experiencing certain events, certain circumstances, situations throughout my day? Have I been reactive? Have I been proactive? Have I reflected upon different things that I've done or different events or experiences, right? Whatever that may be, you want to get a pulse check here. And then number 3, in the evening here, you want to get a reality loop reflection, okay? So this is where you're reflecting upon your entire day and what happened? How did it go? What are the negatives? What are the positives? What are the different experiences that you had and how you interpreted them, right? This is where you want to notice if any emotional resistance or misalignment came up. Maybe you notice that midday you're experiencing self-doubt, you're experiencing negative self-talk, whatever that may be, right? It's about really capturing the entire experience throughout the day of what happened and just getting a reflection of it all, right? Just being aware of what happened throughout that day and remembering that you have the power to consciously reframe, right, all of those negative things that are happening right? The negative self-talk and all of that, you have the ability to reframe that into a positive and empowering and useful type of event. You don't manifest faster by wanting more. You manifest faster by becoming the internal operating system that your desires can land on. Your reality is not waiting for permission, it's waiting for alignment.